Hi, I'm Ashley, and it is time for my September wrap up. As you can see, I read quite a few books in September. I read 19 books in total, so let's start talking about them. Okay, so we're gonna go in order of books that I read. So the first book that I read was Apollyon. This is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the final book in the Covenant series, and I actually listened to this on audio. This was a reread for me. This series is about a world where there's purebloods and half-bloods, like they're descendants of gods, and purebloods are held to a much higher respect than half-bloods. And our main character is a half-blood, and it's kind of about what she's going through, and she gets thrown into these situations where she has to overcome a lot and learn who she is. And it's just a really fun series. I'm currently listening to the spin-off series that follows another one of the characters from this book, and I just love this world. I just find it so much fun, and I just love Jennifer L. Armentrout's books. So I end up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. The second book that I read is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. So this book is about Elise, who is an adjunct professor by day, and at night she actually works on this app where she fake dates people. And one of her favorite clients has this brother, Jack. And her and Jack do not get along. And one day when she's in the running to get this new teaching job, she realizes that Jack is on the committee that helps decide who actually gets the job. And so it's a little bit hate to love, but it's a fun romance. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It's definitely not my favorite Ali Hazelwood. I think Love Hypothesis will always be my favorite, but it was fun. It was a cute story. I loved the main characters. I thought they got along really well. I loved their banter. I do recommend this one. This is definitely my second favorite in the Women of STEM series, but it's a fun read. It's just a lot of fun. Next, I read Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I love this book so much. So this book is about Chani, and when she was little and her younger sister Vanessa, when she was just born, her dad tries to sacrifice Chani to this evil witch, and as a result, Chani actually ends up getting cursed to have the head of a snake. And so everyone's kind of scared of her, and they end up growing up like this. And when her sister is put into this vulgar marriage competition where their dad pretty much decides who she's going to marry, Chani actually volunteers to be her champion and basically fight for her right to choose for herself. And things kind of get a lot crazier from there. It takes off in such a wild plot, and the ending... So one thing, if you don't know Elizabeth Lim, she has 2 other duologies out, and all of her duologies are connected in some sort of way. Like, all of her books are in the same universe and they are connected. And at the end of this book, you find out how it's connected to the other ones. And how it was connected, I didn't see it coming. I was shocked. I loved it so much. It was so cool. It was really cool getting this story of this character. I loved it. I loved it. And Elizabeth Lim's writing is just so beautiful and so lyrical, and she just creates such fun YA fantasy stories. If you haven't read her books yet, I highly recommend that you do. I know earlier in this video I said Apollyon was the last book in the Covenant series. I lied. It's the second to last book. The last book is Sentinel, which I also listened to in September, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. This is just a fun series. Like I said earlier, it's just like the type of series you can just read and not have to really think. It's just a fun time, and I think that's why I recommend it so much. I think it's a good palate cleanser while also being a really fun urban fantasy, so definitely check that series out. And I gave Sentinel 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Love in the End Zone by Karina Rose. This is about Trent and Reese. Trent is the quarterback for a football team, and Reese is the granddaughter of their rival team. One day when they are going against each other for the championship spot, Trent ends up scoring the winning touchdown, sees Reese in the stand, winks at her, and Reese flips him off for everyone to see, and they actually become a meme. It's a really cute romance. I really enjoyed it. I just love the characters. I thought they were adorable. They have some really good banter because it's like they're rivals. They have to have good banter. It's not my favorite football romance. I've definitely read better, but this is just, it was a lot of fun. I'm really happy that I got to read it. I did think some things were kind of rushed, and Trent kind of was mean at times, but I still really enjoyed this book and I do recommend it. And I gave it, I believe, 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to The Return by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I'm not going to say a lot about the plot of this one because it is a spin-off of the Covenant series, and it does have spoilers for the Covenant series. So if you haven't read the first series, you can't read this one yet because it's everything that's happening is basically a direct result of the Covenant series. But it follows one of the characters from that, and you get to see him in this new light, get more of an idea of what's going on in his head. And then there's this other character, Josie, who's just adorable, and it's really, really cute. You get to see more of the Greek god world and learn more about them and what they've done in the past and the magic, and it's really fun. I'm absolutely loving it. I think I'm on the 3rd one right now. It's really, really good. And I gave The Return 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Suddenly a Murder. I can't remember the author, so I'll just put the picture here. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. Penguin Teen was nice enough to send me an e-art copy of this, so thank you, Penguin Teen. This book is about a group of friends who go to this historical mansion that's about to get reopened as a museum, but since they're rich, they kind of pulled some strings and got to stay there for a week. And while they're there, one of the friends gets murdered. So it's kind of about figuring out who did the murdering and figuring out everyone's secrets and their motivations. And this book just did not really work for me. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I think it just focused so much on interviewing each character that it was kind of like a lot of telling of the story and not really showing. I wish there was more action, more scenes that really entrapped you, like you needed to know what happened next, and that was just missing for me. And the ending was kind of lame, honestly. I thought it was kind of a cop-out, and it was too like cookie cutter of an ending, and I guess who the murderer was so early on because it's obvious. It really is obvious. And if it's a murder mystery and I guess who it is, then it's not done very well. It needs to be hidden more. There needs to be more like little clues, like you need to misdirect the reader somewhere, and that just didn't happen. But it is okay. It's also YA murder mystery, and those tend to not hit as well for me. So I think if you do like YA mysteries, you might really, really enjoy this. It just wasn't the book for me. This month was filled with like spin-offs of other series. I also read Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, and this is a spin-off of oh my god, what is it called? Something Delights. These Violent Delights. That duology. So this is about one of the characters from that. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to do spoilers. Some people do say that you can read this on its own. I think it's better to read the duology first and then read this because you really have an understanding for some of the characters and their background. But this was so good. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. I loved it. I love the characters. I love the action in it. You get pulled into the story and you don't want to leave because you need to know what happens next. And it was just so wild from start to finish, and I highly recommend it. Next book I read is Unseelie by Velsey Hausman. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. This is a YA fantasy about fae. It's about 2 sisters. One is a changeling and then one is the human. The changeling, her name is Isilia, but they call her Seelie. And these girls, they ended up leaving home because they felt like Seelie's magic was too dangerous to be around their parents. So they kind of have to fend for themselves, and they do that by kind of like pickpocketing, scheming, stealing, that kind of stuff. So they end up going to do this one heist on this one house that belongs to a very high up individual. And they end up running into other people, there's some fighting, and then they end up getting this object that is very sought after, and things kind of spiral from there into this amazing fantasy adventure. I love this book so much. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read it all in one sitting. I was done in a day. I couldn't put it down. The characters are amazing. I love Seelie. So, like, the whole idea of this book is that changelings, the whole myth about them came across because they were really just children with autism, and back then they didn't know what it was or how to handle it. So, obviously, they're just like, oh my god, it's magic. It's evil fairies. So, Seelie is autistic, and you see that representation in here, but they don't say it because that word wasn't a thing then. But it's really cool seeing her grow into this amazing human being and really grow to love herself and trust herself and just accept who she is and be proud of it. I also just love any book that has really big theme of sibling love and sibling friendship, because the relationship between the sisters is so important in this, and it was just beautiful. And then the ending. The last, like, few chapters really threw me for a loop. Like, I was shocked. I was reading it, like, I need the next book, like, yesterday, because I need to see what happens. It's so, so good. Next book that I read is The Forest Grimm, and this is a dark fairy tale retelling. It has a lot of different fairy tales in it. So this is about a girl who lives in a cursed town. They used to have this magical book that on a certain birthday you would get granted a wish, but if you told someone what you wished for, it would come untrue. And one day someone wished for someone's death, and that was kind of against the rules, and they kind of lost the right to this book. So the town became cursed, and so did the forest surrounding it, which is the Forest Grimm. And every year they would lose people to the forest, and they became known as the Lost, and they were never to be seen again. And one of those people is the main character's mother. So she goes into the forest, and the daughter just becomes very focused on trying to find her and get her back. So she goes into there with her friends to save the lost people, and they encounter a bunch of fairy tales along the way. And it was just so good. I love how creepy and dark the atmosphere was. Like, I kind of wish I read this in October, because it's spooky, and it's perfect for spooky season because of the atmosphere. I loved the characters. I loved their relationships. I loved the adventure that they went on. It was so good. It's out now, so you can go get your own copy. I highly recommend it. I can't talk about it enough. I loved it so much. Next book, we're not going to dwell on that much because I gave it like 2 out of 5 stars. It probably should be a 1 out of 5 stars. And that is Feeling Love Beyond Death. This book sounded really, really cool. It's about it's kind of like a murder mystery. They're trying to investigate who is killing these strippers from this one strip club, and the main character is an empath, and she is kind of hired to go and invest it and use her abilities to go undercover and figure it out. That was about like maybe the first like 10% of the book, and then just spiraled, and the most of the story is spent in a flashback of this woman's life and what she couldn't remember, and it was so bad. I don't even think the mystery of who was killing the woman ever got solved. And I did not enjoy this book. This was not the book for me. It sounded really unique and quirky, and it just did not meet my expectations. So, not the book for me. Next, I finished Lyriel by Garth Nix, and this is the second book in this series. The first one is Sabriel, and this takes place in a world where necromancy is a very well-known thing, and there's like the normal world, and then there is the world where magic is, like a wall separates them. And Lyriel lives on the magical side of the wall, and she is getting to an age where she's supposed to be getting the sight and something to do, like some clairvoyant power she's supposed to get, but she's just not getting it. So she ends up going to work in this grand library that's like so many floors beneath ground. There's like tunnels and corridors. It's just so big and so many mysteries, and so she ends up working in there. And then there's also the prince, and they're trying to save the world from an evil necromancer, and it's just so good. I loved it so much. It took me a while to get through. I really don't know why. I absolutely love it, but I like to take my time with it to really like absorb the fantasy aspects and the characters and really appreciate how they grow over the novel. I love it. I love the series. I can't wait to read the rest of the series. It's so good. Next, I read Stolen Desire by Lauren J. Renau, and this is a romance about a couple and their neighbors. There's some swingers in this, but that's really not the focus of the book. There's maybe like 1 or 2 scenes with them, and that's it. This ends up being a romantic suspense thriller type book, and I did not know that going into this, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I loved this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I couldn't put it down. On the back it says, secrets, lies, and tempting nights. Never be surprised by what goes on behind your neighbor's front door. It's just intriguing. You want to know what happens next. I thought I knew who did it, but then some things were revealed and I was like, oh God, it's not that person, it's that person. And it was just shocking and kind of heartbreaking, honestly, but it was so good and I highly recommend this one. Next book I read was Nightbreaker by Coco Ma. Thank you, Penguin Teen, so much for sending me a finished copy of this. I love this book. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. So this is about New York City, but New York City gets cut off from the rest of the world because of this darkness and fog that descends upon them. And then when the fog lifted, a bunch of people were missing, and there's now these creatures that come out at night that kill people, and the city kind of has to adjust from being like the city that never sleeps to the city that can't go out at night. And the main character, she wants to become one of the very sought after positions of fighting these creatures that go bump in the night and protecting the city. And so she has to compete in this competition to try to get the highest position she possibly can. And it was just so good. I read this during my little 24-hour readathon that I did on my TikTok, and I loved it so much. There were times where like I was sobbing, I was screaming, I was laughing. It brought out so many emotions, and also this cover is just gorgeous. I love this cover so much. I highly recommend this. It's really good. It's really fun. It's an emotional roller coaster, but a good emotional roller coaster. And I need the next book. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a sequel, but I need it. I love this book. Next, I read Awaken the Fifth Order, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. This is the final book in this trilogy, and I was just left unsatisfied. So this is a world where there's a bunch of different magical beings, and they're kind of put into like a hierarchy, and the humans are kind of like mad that they're at the very bottom of that, and it really brings into question like, should there be superior, should everyone be on equal footing, things like that. This book, I just felt like there was way too many different plot lines happening at once, so it was very hard to keep it straight. I don't know which plot points got solved, which ones didn't, and the ending was it wasn't enough. Like, I expected this humongous battle scene, and I didn't get it. So I was very disappointed by it. It was okay. I still absolutely love the characters, and I love the world that is set up, but the storyline just did not end correctly for me. Next book I read is To Carve a Fey Heart by Tisonia Odette, and I loved this book so much. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, I believe. Right? 4? Yes, 4 out of 5 stars. This is about 2 sisters who they think they are spared from the lottery that picks who has to go into the Feylands and marry Fae to keep like the treaty intact between the Fae and the humans. But then the girls who actually were picked ended up getting executed for treason, so her and her sister get sent instead. And it's very political, but there's also a romance in it, and I actually love it. And it was just very, very fun to read. It was a quick read. I love this cover. I think it's so pretty. It's like kind of simple but ornate at the same time. I was entertained. I did think there could be a bit more action in it and a bit more of the romance, because it was slow burn. The romance was definitely a bit of a slow one, but once it picked up, I was like, yes. And the ending was insane. I absolutely loved the ending. It was so good. Next, I listened to The Power on audio, and this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the second book in the spin-off series of The Covenant. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. not really going to talk about it because, like I said before, this is a spin-off series and I can't really say anything about it without spoiling the original series. So definitely check The Covenant out. Sorry if you hear my puppies barking downstairs. Sorry, I don't know if you can actually hear them or not, but I can hear them. Next, I read The Savage by Daniela Romero. This book, it seems like it was going to be a soccer romance. I was like expecting a nice, fun soccer romance, and that was not what it was. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. So, Gabriel is the male love interest, and Cecilia is the female love interest, and Gabriel one day finds Cecilia after she tried to kill herself, and he saves her. And after that, to me, it seems like he felt like he was owed her, kind of. Cecilia has been through a lot. There is a lot of trigger warnings for this book. Sexual assault, rape, anything you can think of, it's probably in here. Gabriel could not be patient enough to wait for Cecilia to be ready to open up to him and actually trust him, so he goes behind her back and finds everything out. He was very controlling, very disrespectful in a way because he couldn't respect her boundaries. And I just thought he was very toxic, and I really did not like him. And this is the first book in this series. Like, this leaves off kind of a cliffhanger. I'm not going to read the rest. I did not enjoy this. It was very problematic to me. And the last book that I read was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I finally read it, you guys. I finally read this chunker. It was so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved being back in this world. I love seeing all the old characters. I really liked how we got to see more into Nesta and Cassian's minds. Those are 2 characters that always intrigued me so much in the original series, and I wanted to know more about them, so getting this was amazing. And Nesta, my heart breaks for her and what she's been through, and like, you see she's so much more than that stone cold person. Like, you actually see what makes her tick. And I also just love the romance. It was so cute. It was amazing. I love it. There's a lot of female empowerment in this. It's so good. It's not a literary masterpiece by any means. It's just addicting and it's fun. So that is all the books that I read in September, all 19 of them. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know what you guys have read in September in the comments. Bye, everyone.